In Revit, pipes are system families. Therefore, you cannot create or delete the pipe family. However, you can create as many family types for the system family as needed. The main parameters that define a pipe type are the routing preferences. Let's take a look at how to create a new pipe type and define the routing preferences. On the Systems ribbon, in the Plumbing and Piping panel, click the Pipe tool. In the Properties palette, click Edit Type to open the Type Properties dialog. Looking in the Family drop-down, you can see that pipes are a system family. For example, when I expand the Type drop-down, you can see that there are several types, such as Standard, PVC, and Chilled Water. I'll select Standard, but I need a welded carbon steel pipe type. To create a new type based on this type, I'll click Duplicate. In the Name dialog, I'll name this type Carbon Steel Welded, and then click OK. Now we can specify any of the parameters here to define the family type. I'll click the Edit button next to Routing Preferences to open the Routing Preferences dialog. Here, you can assign the pipe segment and the various fittings to use when routing pipe. Let's start at the top and see what content can be specified. You can select the pipe segment by clicking in the field and expanding the drop-down. The available pipe segments in this list are defined in the Segments and Sizes settings in the Mechanical Settings dialog. This is essentially the material and sizes of the pipe. You can access these settings directly from this dialog. When you click the Segments and Sizes button at the top of the dialog, the Segments and Sizes settings open. This table is located in the Mechanical Settings dialog. Here, you can control the segments and roughness as well as the sizes that are available when creating piping and the sizes that Revit uses when sizing piping. The roughness value is used when Revit calculates pressure drop. I'll click OK to close this dialog. Now, I'll select Steel, Carbon, Schedule 40 for the pipe segment. Next, for the elbow, you can click in the field and expand the drop-down. All of the pipe elbows loaded into the project will appear. I will select the generic welded elbow. Under Preferred Junction Type, you can select either Tap or T. If you select T, you can then choose a fitting for the junction. Additionally, you can control the fittings under Cross, Transition, Union, and Flange. Simply click in the field, expand the drop-down, and select one of the available fittings loaded into the project. I will select the generic welded fittings. If the fitting that you want to use is not there, you can click Load Family to load a family from the Revit Family Library or your custom family library. For example, at the top of the dialog, I'll click Load Family to open the Load Family dialog. I'll open Pipe, Fittings, Carbon Steel, Class 150, Flanged. In this folder, I can see several fittings that I could load and use besides the generic fittings. When I select a family, I can see a preview of that fitting. For now, I'll click Cancel to close the dialog. You can also control the available content for different sizes. Notice that when I click in the Pipe Segment field, I can click the Add Row button to add an additional row. Now I can modify the minimum and maximum sizes for each segment. For example, I can change the second row to Steel, Carbon, Schedule 80, and then change the min size to 3 inches, or 80 millimeters in the metric file. Then I can change the max size in the first row to 2½ inches or 65 millimeters in the metric file. Now, any pipe created with this type under 3 inches or 80 millimeters will be Schedule 40 carbon steel, whereas anything 3 inches or 80 millimeters and greater will be Schedule 80. You can use any of the minimum and maximum size fields to add size limits to the fittings used. Be aware that you can also add rows under any of the sections or remove rows if more than one row exists under a section. With multiple rows, you can use the Move Row Up and Move Row Down buttons if needed. As you can see, the routing preferences can speed up your pipe layouts once you specify the available settings. Once the routing preferences are set, click OK to close the Routing Preferences dialog. You can then specify any of the parameters under Identity Data to be used in schedules and tags. I'll click OK to close the Type Properties dialog. Now we need to test out the new pipe type. With the new type selected in the Type Selector, I'll place a few pipe segments. Then I'll switch to the default 3D view, change the detail level to Fine, and change the visual style to Shaded. Now we can see the new pipe type better.